So we're going to start this mini sequence lying on our backs just to check in. And you can do blanket underneath your head or not at all. I'm going to scooch forward just because I don't want to use the blanket. And let's come into Shavasana. So let your legs go long on the floor. And take a moment to surrender to gravity. And then send your awareness to the top of your skull. And draw an imaginary line through the center of your head to your cervical spine, your neck spine. That line continues all the way down your thoracic spine, your lumbar spine, to your sacrum and down to your tailbone. And with that line going through the center of your body, shift your awareness over to your right body half. And observe, if you were lying in the sand, what would the imprint of the right side of your head make in the sand? What would the imprint of your right arm, hand, and upper back make in the sand? Travel your awareness down lower to the right side of your waist and rib cage, right side of your pelvis. Sensing the imprint of the whole right side of your torso in the sand. And then sensing the back of your right leg and foot and your whole right side body and its connection to or its imprint in the sand. And then shift your awareness to your left body half. Your left foot and leg, left buttock and side waist, left side of your rib cage, left shoulder blade and arm, and the left side of your neck and head. And if you were to walk away and look back and see the imprint of the left side of your body in the sand, what would it look like? And if your eyes are closed, go ahead and open your eyes. And we're going to come into a stretch. So since your legs are apart, go ahead and slide your right leg over towards your left. And then you have a couple options. You can cross your right ankle on top of your left or your left ankle on top of your right. I think I'm going to do left on top of right. It feels better. Then you'll do a side bend through your waist and a little scooching of your upper back and your head and neck. And then take a hold of your right wrist with your left hand. And then return back to sensing your two shoulder blades on the mat, your two pelvic halves, your right and left buttock. And as you inhale, reach your right arm up to your right ear and use your left Achilles tendon, your left ankle to increase the stretch from your right pinky toe all the way up to your right pinky finger. We're going to take 2 breaths here. Inhaling, let your belly and ribs expand. And on exhale, just notice a sensation of stretch along the right side of your body, as well as your contact points to the floor. One more slow breath in, belly and ribs expand. And then you exhale. Then go ahead and unhook and come back to Shavasana and slide your left leg as far as you can without bending your knee over to your right leg. At a certain point, you'll get stuck. So you bend your knee and then go up and over. And then same thing, I'm gonna do right ankle on top of left. But you can sample out which one you like on top better to feel some stretch through the outer left leg and hip. And then you can do a little bit of scooching your upper body into a side bend. You'll clasp your left wrist with your right hand. Both sides of your pelvis, both buttocks are on the ground, and both shoulder blades. And then inhale, reach your left arm, your left shoulder up to your ear, and fan your breath into the left side of your rib cage. On exhale, just surrender to the ground. We'll take 2 more breaths here. Filling up your belly, your ribs, stretching. You can even tense up a little bit. Call this pandiculation. So if you're, waking up in the morning and you tense everything up, and then you slowly release that contraction. One more time. Inhaling into your ribs, but especially the left side of your rib cage, and then exhale. Then go ahead and uncross your ankles, come back to Shavasana, and you can bend your knees. We're going to start lying on our left side. And I have some blankets here for a little extra support. You're going to take your right hand to the side of your head. So it's optional having the blankets. And of course, your left arm, you can do whatever you like with it. And actually, for now, let's relax your right arm by your side. So you've got your right leg on top, and there's a motion called eversion. So inversion is when the medial side of your foot turns towards your midline, and eversion is when you're peeling the outer portion of your foot towards your outer ankle. So we're going to focus on eversion. So relax your feet, and then begin to peel the outside of your right foot towards your outer right shin, and then let it go. Doing that with my hand. And we'll do that 2 or 3 more times. So activating your anterior tibialis, the peroneals, and then relaxing that. We'll do that once more. Evert, so outside edge of the foot, outside of your lower leg starts to contract, and then you release. Okay, now go ahead and take your right fingers to your left ear, or left temple, and you'll start to just lift and lower your head. And as you do this, you can notice what's efforting, where's the effort and where's the ease. So I'm just using the strength of my arm and my hand to lift and lower my head. And I'm not really letting it carry over into other parts of my body. But that's just one strategy. A couple more times. So you explore your strategy for lifting and lowering your head slowly. And then go ahead and release. You can rest your right arm wherever you like. And we'll start to lift the whole lower leg and foot, but keeping the knees together. And you're welcome to, you can link your breath to the movement or just breathe naturally. And notice how this can be a movement that just happens alone, or you could let this movement have some follow through. So maybe you notice the whole right side of your waist gets a little heavier as your lower leg lifts, or it doesn't. You kind of stay as you are, and it's just an isolated movement. One more time. Knees are together. Lift your lower leg up and down. All right, then you're going to take your arm along the side of your body and reach your right fingertips towards your right heel, and then release. So you'll probably feel how your shoulder blade slides down, your shoulder gets a little further away from your ear. And that might be an isolated movement, or maybe other things are happening to make it a little easier. So maybe you kind of hike your hip up to reach your arm. Or you let the left side of your waist get really heavy. One more time. And then let that go. Take your right hand to your right hip and lengthen your right hip away from your right armpit. Then try to hike your right hip towards your right armpit. And do that a few more times. So the top side of your waist lengthens and the top side of your waist shortens. Notice how when the top side of your waist lengthens, the bottom side shortens. And when the bottom side waist lengthens, the top side shortens. Okay, we're gonna put all that together. So again, take your right fingers to the left side of your head and think about how we activated through the outer ankle, so some eversion. We also lifted the lower leg up. We slid the right shoulder down towards the right hip, but we also slid the right hip up towards the right shoulder and then lower everything back down. I'm gonna do that 3 or 4 more times. Try it with your eyes closed and notice the connection from your right ear to your right armpit, from your right armpit to the right side of your hip, from the right side of your hip all the way down the right side of your leg to your outer right ankle and foot. All right, then let's repeat all that on the other side. You're welcome to just roll over, or I'm gonna turn so that I am on my other side, but still facing you. And then once you get comfortable with your head on some support, start to activate the left peroneals, the left anterior tibialis to evert your ankle, and then let that go. 3 more times. So you're peeling the outer edge of your left foot, the pinky toe side, towards your left outer shin and knee. And once more. All right, so as below, so above. You're gonna take your left fingers to the right side of your head and slowly start to lift your head up and lower down. And close your eyes and notice if you're just feeling sensation along the left side of your neck, because obviously you're shortening the left side of your neck, or if you also maybe feel some muscular activation in the left side of your waist. One more time, just lifting and lowering your head. Doesn't need to be big or small, could be either or, and then let that go. You'll start to lift your left lower leg up and down. And as you do that, notice if you feel anything in the left side of your waist. Because we could do this without also sinking the right side waist into the ground, just lifting the leg. Or you could let those two things happen together. All right, and then take your left arm along the side of your body. And just for contrast, hike your left shoulder up to your left ear and then do the opposite. You're gonna depress your shoulder away from your ear, reach your left fingers towards your left ankle. And then relax that. 2 more times. You'll reach your left fingers towards your left heel bone and let that go. One more time. You might feel some work or some activation under your left armpit. You might feel this reciprocal tensing of the left side of your waist. And then letting that go. So let's put that together. You're going to take your left hand to the outside, right side of your head, and slowly begin to lift your foot, your lower leg, and your head, and return back down. We'll do this 3 more times, but try closing your eyes and just sensing how it feels in your body as you do this movement from your left pinky toe to the outside of your left knee, from the outside of your left knee to your outer hip and left side waist, from the left side of your waist through your left armpit all the way to your left elbow, forearm, wrist, hand, and head. And then let that go. We're going to come back onto our back and recheck that side bending banana. I'm going to move my blankets out of the way, and I'll meet you on our back. So once you're comfortable on your back, come to Shavasana and start to slide your left leg towards your right leg without bending your left knee. And at a certain point, you're going to get stuck. So you can either take your left ankle on top of your right or right on top of left. I'm going to do right on top of left. It gives me a little better leverage. And then start to wiggle and slide your upper body over. So there's a bend at the right side of your waist. You'll take your right hand to your left wrist, and then inhale, reach your left arm up to your left shoulder as you lengthen down through your outer left leg and foot. Sense the connection of both buttocks on the ground, both shoulder blades on the ground, and take a slow breath in, expanding your left side rib cage and waist, and then exhale. One more time, just noticing how this feels now versus how it felt before we did the side-lying somatic sequence. And then release the connection of your ankles, your hands. Come back to Shavasana just for a moment and start to slide your right leg slowly across. Get it as close to your left leg as possible, and then either up on top, right ankle over left, or left ankle on top of right. Find the place where you get the best sense of stretch. And then you'll take left hand to right wrist. Actually, it's probably a little easier to scoot yourself first, and then you'll clasp the wrist with your left hand. Feel the connection of both pelvic halves to the ground, both shoulder blades, and then slowly breathe in, reaching your right shoulder up to your right ear and lengthening from right pinky finger to right pinky toe. As you inhale, compare and contrast how this stretch feels now versus before. And then slowly release. Uncross your ankles, unclasp your wrists, and come back to the imagery of lying in the sand. You can imagine the sun is warm above. You can smell the salt, the sea air. And go back to that center line, dividing your body in half, that goes from the crown of your head down through the center of your skull, through your spine to your tailbone. And bring your awareness to the back of your right head, its imprint in the sand, the imprint of your right arm, hand, and shoulder blade in the sand. Right side waist, right buttock, leg, and foot. And then your whole right side body. What is its imprint in the sand? Then shift your awareness to your left side body. And sense the connection, the heaviness of the left side of your head, left shoulder blade and arm in the sand. Left side of your rib cage, torso, and left buttock. The back of your left leg and your left foot, the whole left side of your body. Notice its imprint in the sand. And maybe one side of your body feels a little heavier than before or lighter. Maybe your whole back body feels heavier or lighter. Take a slow breath in, and as you exhale, go ahead and bend your right knee and left knee. Find the floor with your feet. And then roll onto your side and press yourself up to seated. We're going to move into the next mini sequence. Welcome to the somatic side lying sequence. You don't need any props for this first mini sequence. We're going to start by lying down on our backs on the floor. And then you can have your legs long or knees bent, feet on the ground. So bring one hand to your belly and one hand to your ribs. And take a moment to fully inhale. And as you exhale, notice the natural pause when you finished your exhalation. We're going to do that 2 more times. Just a slow breath in. Belly and ribs expand, followed by your exhalation, noticing the pause when you finished the exhale. 1 more time. Inhale, belly swells, ribs expand. You fill up your lungs completely, and then empty. And then we're going to check in with a side bend. So slide your right leg towards your left leg. And without bending your knees, go as far as you can. And then when you get stuck, you're going to pick up your left foot and you'll have your left ankle on top of your right. And then do a little bit of scooching. So you're side bending at the left side of your waist. And take your arms overhead, clasp your right wrist with your left hand. Go back to the slow breath in, feeling both sides of your pelvis and both shoulder blades connect to the floor. And as you exhale, just tune into the sensation along your lateral line, from your right ankle all the way up to your right wrist. Then release the clasp of your ankles, your wrists, come back to center, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So sliding your left leg slowly towards your right. And at a certain point, you're gonna get stuck. And so that's when you'll take your right leg on top and just use your right ankle and foot to give yourself a little extra stretch. And then some scooching. So however you like to scooch, you'll side bend at the right waist and clasp your left wrist with your right hand. Take a slow breath in, and as you exhale, in your awareness, sense the heaviness of your right and left shoulder blades on the floor, and the right and left ilium bones, right and left sides of your pelvis. And then direct your awareness to any sensation along the left lateral line. So that might be from your left pinky finger all the way to your left pinky toe. Or you might just notice most of the sensation in the left side of your waist. There's no right or wrong. And then unclasp your wrists. Return your legs back to your Shavasana. And then you're going to bring your hands to your frontal hip points. And I like to actually also take my thumbs to where I can feel the bottom of my ribs. And your legs won't be super wide. They don't need to be perfectly parallel, just kind of somewhere in between. And we're going to do a little bit of pandiculation. So this is a hip hike. And what you'll do, and this is small if you want to watch first, is I'm going to bring my middle finger and thumb closer to each other. That's my ASIS and my bottom sort of rib area. So I tense the quadratus lumborum and some other muscles, and then I slowly release. We're going to do that maybe 2 to 4 times on this left side. So it's a small movement. You hike your left hip towards your left armpit, and then it's a slow release. Let's do that 2 more times. Hiking your hip. You'll feel some muscles, probably deep in the low back, contract and release. We'll do that same thing on the right side. So your right pelvic half is going to move up towards the bottom side of your right rib cage and release. Twice more. You hike up slowly but surely. There's a contraction, and then the release is slow as well. 1 more time. Sliding your right hip up, 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 and letting it go. From here, go ahead and bend your knees so you're in constructive rest or Ardha Shavasana, and we're going to do the same thing. So I've got my thumb here on, I can feel a rib poking out, and my middle finger on this frontal hip point. And otherwise it's the same, but it's not, right? So hike your left hip towards your left armpit. That's going to shorten the left side of your waist, and then slowly release. Twice more. You might notice, just because your knees are bent, that maybe you can, get a better contraction. It's a shorter lever, so it's a little less load, so to speak. Last time. Little side bend, hip to armpit, and a slow release of the contraction. Same thing on the right side. So you side bend, and you'll feel the top of your iliac crest on the right get closer to that bottom rib, the 12th rib. Let it go slow. Twice more. Contract. So you've got your quadratus lumborum. It's a really deep, deep muscle that does this movement, along with, of course, others. No muscle works on its own. And last time. A little hip hike to the right. And especially for moms with young kids, a lot of times if you carry your child on one hip, you might notice a really big difference in the ability to contract on one side versus the other. Okay, so now take your legs back long again, but they're much wider. And you'll have your arms out to the sides. Same thing, so I'm gonna hike my left hip towards my left armpit, but because my arms and legs are wider, my obliques are more involved, and so it becomes just a bigger movement. And I'm allowing my head to go along for the ride. So I'm shortening the distance between my left hip, my left armpit. My head just kind of naturally rolls. I've got a ponytail in the way, so it's a little bit inhibited from rolling, but I moved it out of the way. We'll do twice more. So hiking your hip up. You might also kind of pull your left shoulder blade down and release. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So right hip hikes, right shoulder kind of drops. It just all happens naturally along with your head rolling, and then you come back. 2 more times. Initiate elevation, the right side of your pelvis. Notice how your right head, your head just kind of rolls to the right. You don't have to make it happen. And last time. Okay, so we combined lateral flexion, which is side bending, with cervical rotation. Let's do it again, but rather than letting your head roll passively, you're going to side bend your cervical spine in the same way we're doing with your mid-back and lower back spine. So you want to think of looking at the ceiling the whole time, and the image I often give, because chocolate is my favorite, is there's like a plate on your face. There's of course a hole for your nose, you can breathe just fine, and there's all these dark chocolate truffles on the plate, and you don't want any of them to drop to the floor. So I'm bringing my left ear towards my left shoulder, and I'm still bringing my left hip towards my left armpit, and then I come back. So it's a lot more conscious effort, and it's less relaxing than just letting your head roll. Let's do that 2 more times. So you side bend at the neck, you're side bending at the waist, and coming back to center. And for me, it's a little challenging. Like I notice at a certain point, my head does want to roll a little bit. So keeping that pure side bending, especially without a mirror, is not easy. And release. Same thing to the other side. So you're gonna side bend your neck and your side waist, and then return. Twice more. Right ear to right shoulder, right armpit to right hip to right armpit, and return. Think of the plate of chocolates. Keep your eyes facing the ceiling rather than letting your head roll. And return. A lot of effort. Take a breath in, sigh it out. So now we're going to bring our legs a little bit closer together. So you can think of heels in line with your sits bones or your ischial tuberosities. And let's go back to middle fingers on your ASIS or your frontal hip points, thumbs touching your ribs. And begin to shorten the left side of your waist, and then slowly release. And we'll do that maybe 4 or 5 more times. But what I want you to notice is with your feet so much closer together, now, of course, it's still quadratus lumborum, but you might sense your psoas as well, because we're working really close to the midline. You might feel a little more core engagement as opposed to just sort of low back engagement near the spine. 1 more time. You also might notice the movement is much smaller and that your head still naturally rolls. And then return. Same thing other side. So hiking right hip to right armpit, but feeling what's changed with your legs this close together. You might actually feel a connection through your inner thighs, your adductors. So much more midline focused and core centric to inner thighs, pelvic floor, psoas. Let's go 1 more time to the right. And then release. Okay, now we're going to explore in this X shape. So as you hike your right hip towards your right armpit, your head's going to roll to the left and then release. But I want you to also notice what happens to your your left arm and your left leg. So left hip to left armpit, and then slowly release. Twice more. You might feel your left arm get closer to your left leg, and this sense of lengthening of them away from each other. Last time, what happens with your head? Which way is it rolling? Which way can you allow it to roll? And then we'll try the other side. So you're initiating this in your mind from the side of your waist, so proximally, but what's happening distally, meaning in your right leg and arm? What's happening in your head and neck as you hip hike on the right side? To return back after you hip hike, does it help to think of maybe reaching out through your right foot and your right hand? Or is it more useful to think of lengthening the right side of your waist after you've shortened it? There's no right or wrong. Just explore different strategies and then take a little rest. So let's move side to side continuously. So start by hiking your right hip to your right armpit, and then left hip to left armpit. And because we're on the bare floor rather than on a sticky mat, I don't know, I like to imagine I'm like seaweed at the bottom of the ocean. And as you do this movement continuously from side to side, change your lens. So what does it feel like if you were to lengthen your left hand from your right foot, and then your right hand from your left foot? Versus what does it feel like to lengthen your right shoulder blade from your right buttock, and your left shoulder blade from your left buttock? So distal cues versus proximal cues, and how does that change your experience of the movement? And then as you do it just a couple more times, make it smaller and lazier and easier. But if you bring your awareness to poses like extended side angle pose or triangle, half moon, even like Jatara Parivartanasana, how could you maybe use some of these elements or cues or movements to help your students or yourself in your own practice in your asana? And then coming back to center and resting. So I call this one suck towards your heart. So slide your arms down by your waist, by your hips, and then bring your right hand to your chest and your left hand on top. And start to internally rotate your right leg. So your foot's gonna turn in, your thigh's gonna roll in, and then you're also gonna hike up your right hip to your right armpit. And notice how it's like your chest, your heart kind of sucks down towards your center, and then you lengthen back away. So the nice thing of having your hands on your chest is as you internally rotate your hip and foot and pull it in towards your midline and hip hike, feel how your chest, you're compressing your spine, and then there's this lengthening away. We'll do that one more time. The internal rotation, not just of your hip, but also notice what happens to your right shoulder. It kind of internally rotates and depresses. And then there's your lengthening away. We're gonna do same thing on the other side. You can switch which hand is on top if you like. And you'll start to roll your left thigh in. And then hip hike, left hip to left armpit. Feel your heart drop down as if you're sucking your leg in towards your heart, and release. Twice more. Internal rotation, so spiral your thigh inwards, hike your hip, and your chest drops down. And then enjoy the lengthening Last time. This is really nice. Sometimes people get stuck in a pattern, just like I was saying, like if you carry your child on one hip or always carry your bag or your purse on one shoulder. This contract, relax of pendiculation can often reset your nervous system to get you out of that habit. Okay, so pause for a moment and notice. And then bring your arms back overhead so you're in the X. So this one I think of, or I like to call, lengthen away from your heart. So start by reaching your right heel to that bottom right corner of your room. And continue that reach by shortening the left side of your waist. Your head will naturally roll to the left, and then you reset. We'll do that twice more. So initiate from your right heel, reaching. Continue the reach by shortening the left side of your waist. And then let it go. Last time, reach through your right heel, but also reach through your right hand. And then coming back to center. We'll do same thing on the opposite side. So left heel reaches. Your right side waist shortens. You keep reaching through your left fingers as well as through your left foot, and then back to center. One more time. Initiate the reaching through your left heel, side bend left to the right, let your head roll naturally to the right, and relax. Okay, let's recheck in with the side bending, banana stretch. So slide your right leg towards your left. Go slow enough that gives you time to actually feel, right? So don't rush through it. Go slow enough to where you probably feel some work in your right inner thigh, maybe a little stretch in the outer right leg. And then when you can't go any further, you're gonna pick up your left ankle and put it on top of your right. And then do a little bit of shimmying, side bending over to the left. Clasp your right wrist with your left hand and slowly breathe in. And then reach and stretch. Remember when you were a kid and you would your mom or your dad would come in and say, oh, time to get up. And you go, no. That's called pandiculation. You see your dog do it or your cat. So you're tensing as you stretch and then slowly release. Pause for a moment and remember back to how this felt at the beginning of the sequence. And then let go. Uncross your ankles, come back to center, and begin to slide your left leg towards your right. Go slow enough to give yourself time to feel. Notice how you have to anchor your right heel bone into the ground quite vigorously, or at least I do, to get over there. And then you can lift your right foot up, cross it on top of your left ankle. Give yourself maybe a little extra scooch over to the side, and then right hand clasps left wrist. Inhale, reach and stretch. Press your whole back body into the ground. Back of your head, backs of your arms, your shoulder blades, both of your buttocks, back of your left leg and heel for 4, 3, 2, and then on 1, slowly release that contraction. Take a big breath in, and as you exhale, remember back to how this felt at the beginning of the sequence. Notice any changes. Then uncross and come back to just noticing your right body half and your left body half, that imaginary line down through the center. And the weight of the right side of your head and shoulder blade, right arm and torso, right buttock, leg, and foot on the ground. And then shift your awareness from your right body half across to your left, noticing your connection to the ground through the back of your head on the left side, left upper back and arm, whole left torso, buttock, leg, and foot. And then bend your knees. Go ahead and hug your knees in. Rock a little bit side to side. And then roll all the way over onto your left side and make your way up to seated. So we're going to move into our final sequence. So we're going to start on our back in the X shape. And from here, begin to bend your left elbow and your left knee. And notice how your right leg just kind of naturally slid a little bit towards your midline. And then returning back to your X. Let's do that twice more. So your left elbow and your left knee bend and slide. Your right leg stays straight and goes along for the ride. One more time. Notice how your head naturally rolls to the left, and then you return to your X. Same thing on the other side. So you'll bend your right elbow and right knee, and return. And breathe naturally, or you can link your breath to your movement, but notice what's happening in your left leg. Have this initiation of right elbow to right knee, slides your left leg more towards your midline. And on this last one, notice what happens with your head. When you bring your right elbow to your right knee, your head naturally rolls to the right. So back in your X, we're going to take this into body half flexion with side seed. So you'll be like a little seedling. We'll start the same way, bending your left elbow and your left knee, and your right leg still slides, but you're gonna also slide your right arm overhead until you end up in a little ball like a tiny seed. And then take your right hand and your right foot. They stay on the ground, but they reach in opposition until you're back in your X. We'll do that a couple more times. So left elbow to left knee, just like you did before, but now right arm and right leg slide as well until you end up curled in a ball. And then I like to imagine a kinesphere or a big circle on the ground that is the perimeter of my X. And my right hand and my right foot are sliding along that circle, that perimeter that surrounds the X. And then I retrace the perimeter of the circle, or the kinesphere, it's often referred to in Laban Bartenieff. And then you're back where you started. We'll do same thing on the other side. So right elbow to right knee, but let your left arm and leg follow until you're curled into your ball. Now that you kind of know the movement, you can get a little more free with it. So you could pick up the pace. But notice how you're still staying in contact with the floor through your hands and your feet the whole time. And then coming back to your X. So we'll finish with body half flexion with star seed. So you'll be a seed and a star on this one. You'll bend your left elbow and left knee. Remember, that was the very first part. And then we added the second part, which is the seed, where you're all the way curled up into a little ball. And then here's the fun part. You get to explode into a big star shape. And then you'll curl back into your seed. Maintain your connection of hands and feet. And you're back in your X. Let's do that on the other side. So right elbow, right knee. You roll into your seed shape, And then here's where you can find some balance and connection to the ground through your right arm, right leg, and then recoil back and maintain your contact as you come back to your X. One more time each side. We can pick up the pace if you like and make it a little more fluid. You could add a back bend in your star if you like, or you could make it almost like an open chain version of Anantasana, right? And maybe reach up for your foot. Last one each side. And then let's recheck in with the side bend. So you're gonna slide your right leg towards your left, and then pick your left foot up, ankle on top. Slide your right arm over, side bend, clasp, and pause to breathe. Noticing how this side bend feels. And then uncross, back to your X. Left leg slides towards your right. And then left leg on top of right or right on top of left, either way. I think right on top of left feels a little better for me. And then you'll clasp. And just noticing, how does it feel on this side? What are your connections to the floor through your back body? And then releasing. You're welcome to stay here in Shavasana for as long as you like. Thank you so much for practicing with me.